So today I'm going to start the workshop off with I'm going to discuss again indicators. Working with indicators or dealing with indicators that back paint, what's called quote back painting. Um, so back painting is when an indicator changes its historical results. So let me pull up my first chart. And yeah, here it is. All right, so if you look at the dots on the chart there, right, that is Ninja's swing indicator. So you can see up the top of the chart here, that's Ninja's swing indicator. Um, so Ninja's swing indicator back paints, right? So you can see how the dots print all the way back to the low or the swing high, right? So no indicator knows exactly when a high point is going to be made. How would this indicator not know that this is going to be the high point versus, this being the high point, right? No indicator can predict the future. And, so what happened was the indicator kind of corrected itself historically. And I'm going to demonstrate that here. So, all right, so you can do this with almost every indicator. So there's some indicators that are coded in a specific way where this test doesn't work, but I'm going to show you how to do a test. Right, so all I did was just slide my chart back a little bit historically, and the next thing you need to do is you have to disconnect from your data feed in order for this to work. So let me disconnect temporarily. So it's probably best, to do this test after the market is closed. That way you don't have to turn your data feed off during the market hours. Okay, so data feed's off, right? I moved my chart back, and now what I'm using is the arrow keys on my keyboard. So with the arrow keys, I can step forward one at a time. And sorry, before I step forward, we need to reload the chart, right? We need to reload the NinjaScript. So F5 on the chart. Okay, now I can use the arrow keys and step forward on the chart. So let me shrink the chart a little bit. So you can see right now, right, there's that high point's not being marked. Right, so this high is not being marked yet. And let me step forward a couple more bars. As soon as I get to the 5th bar after that high point, it's going to get marked. So it's still not marked. There's no green dots yet. And all of a sudden, boom, green dots. So you see how all those historical bars got filled in, right? So it looks nice and pretty on the chart, but it's very illusionary. So so let me back up a little bit, and I'm going to refresh the chart again, right? So those dots are missing. So if you tried to use the swing indicator within BloodHound in real time, right, those dots are not missing. In real time, the swing indicator is not identifying that as a high point, right? So this doesn't get identified as a high point until we get so many bars away. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So on the 5th bar after the swing point, that is when the swing point was identified. So there are a handful of indicators out there that will do this, just because it does look nice and pretty to do this. But when you're trying to kind of back test your idea, it gives you, the illusion that you will actually know where that high point is in real time. So there's, also another indicator that does that. Let me put on another indicator. So Dorshan's indicator that we included with BloodHound, the swings indicator here. Let me add that on here. All right, so that you can see the swings indicator. It's marking highs and lows, points, and you can see it's marking the higher highs and the lower lows, exactly on the bar. But of course, even this indicator doesn't know if, this indicator doesn't know if that's going to be the lowest low exactly on that bar. Even this indicator has to wait for price to move a little bit before it can identify that as the actual lowest low. So let's see here. So we can see actually it marked that as the highest high. And let me step back a little bit, and I'm going to refresh the chart. Okay, so let's step forward here. So right now you can see the swings indicator is marking that as a double top. And then what happens? Oh, it's still a double top. And now price kept moving, and it changed it to a higher high. So you can see, right, it marked it as a double top, and then that double top disappeared. So the indicator back painted and corrected itself as time goes by. So right there, the indicator is saying that's a double bottom. And it just adjusted. So now it said the next bar is the double bottom. So you can see this indicator is constantly updating itself, or back painting. And another one, back painting. So it just adjusted the double bottom to the next bar forward. Right? So you can see that you can't get a real solid answer out of this indicator. So you can't get a solid answer. So this indicator, if you use it in BloodHound, BloodHound's gonna tell BloodHound, well, this bar, let me stretch this out here a little bit. So let me just step forward. Okay, so we know, looking at this historically, right, that's our double bottom bar. But if BloodHound was reading this indicator in real time, so let me refresh my chart again. So BloodHound was reading in real time, so we got a lower low, and so this indicator, this swings indicator, would tell BloodHound, well, this bar is a double bottom. And then the next bar goes by, and then the indicator is going to tell BloodHound, no, well, this bar is also a double bottom. And then it's going to tell BloodHound, well, actually this third bar here is also a double bottom. So in real time, this indicator is going to tell BloodHound that all three of those bars are double bottoms. But you can see, as we look at the chart historically, what we see is that, well, just this one bar, just the last bar here, was marked as a double bottom. So these are situations to be aware of when using someone's third-party indicator. Is being aware of if it back paints or not. So let's see, let's go forward. So we can see indicators marked a double bottom right there, and the double bottom moves up, and then it turns into a higher high, and then the double bottoms all disappear. So, and let's see, all right, so here we're getting to our higher high, and we know eventually NinjaTrader's swing indicator is going to mark that as a swing high, but not until several bars go by. See, look, already 4 bars have gone by, and still no green dots yet on this high point. Until, well, okay, actually, it's this one. So let's see. There we go. So 4 bars have gone by, and still that top has not been marked by the indicator. No green dots yet. And then we get to the 5th bar, and then all the green dots print. Right? Okay, so now that you kind of understand how these indicators are working, I'm going to demonstrate some things about how this is going to work in BloodHound. And okay, so I removed the SI swing indicator. So I'm just going to deal with NinjaTrader's swing indicator here. All right, so let's see. Yeah, let me mark this high point, and I'll mark this low point here. And I'm going to scroll the chart back, refresh the chart. All right, so now I'm going to open up BloodHound, and we'll see how this behaves in BloodHound. All right, let me name it today's system. And let's see, so we have back painting indicators. And let's see, yeah, I'm just going to do a simple test here. So I'm going to use a threshold solver to just tell me when the plots exist, when the plots are plotting. So let's see, so let's put the swing indicator in here. All right, so this is Ninja swing indicator, and so we're using a strength of 5. And let's see, so let's we'll generate a long output for the swing high, and for the swing low, which is the orange dots, I'll generate a short output here. And so I'm going to leave the threshold at 0. So what that's going to do is, if this plot value is greater than 0, then I'm going to get an output. So I'm going to set the long output, so greater than A, and remember A equals 0. So if we get a plot that's greater than 0, I'm going to get an output, and you can see I'll get an output here. And same for the shorts. So let me let's open this up again here. Right. So I'm using the swing high plot, right, which is the dotted green plot. That's the dotted green. So the swing high, I'm using that to generate the long signals here. So the long is checked. So over here for the long output, so I'm gonna get a long output when the swing high plot is greater than 0. Greater than 0, because A equals 0. And then if the swing low, I'm going to use the swing low to generate a short output. So if the swing low is also greater than 0, then I'm going to get an output. I'm going to get a short output there. So that's all I'm doing. So is I'm just detecting when the plots exist. So perfect. So actually look at this. So you can see right here, these last 2 bars, see how there's no long output, right? There's no long output, and that's because the green dots stopped, right? The green dots are no longer printing anymore. So the green dots don't exist, so therefore they're not greater than 0, right? So the swing high plot is no longer greater than 0 because it just doesn't exist on the chart anymore. And now the long outputs have disappeared. So that's all I'm doing, is I'm just testing to see if the swing high plots exist or if the swing low plots exist. So let's walk forward. So remember that this arrow is marking the swing high, and it hasn't printed yet. And you can see BloodHound, right? BloodHound, or I should say, right, the swing indicator is telling BloodHound that there's no swing high yet because there's no long output, right? We're still missing that long output because the green dotted plot is still not plotting yet. So let's step forward. There's bar 4, now bar 5. Now we can see the green dots show up. So now we've finally got our dots showing up on the 5th bar, and then BloodHound also gave us, right, a long output there. So let's step forward. So remember, we've got a short, actually, let's see, actually this one isn't quite as good of an example because we still have the swing low plot is still plotting here. So, well, all right, we'll just stick with the swing high. This is giving us a better example here. So you can see, right, all the swing highs are missing here. Now, if I refresh the chart, you see how everything changes? Look how everything changes. So remember, all of these, there was a short output here. There was a short output here on all these points, and now there's gaps. So when I refreshed the chart, what that did is it forced BloodHound and the indicator to calculate together at the same time, bar by bar. So effectively what that does is when you refresh your chart, that's the same thing. This is something that NinjaTrader does internally. So I'm getting a little technical, but what NinjaTrader does is, well, actually, hold on. Let's just put 1 day of data on the chart. There we go. So, all right. So what happens is when you refresh your chart, NinjaTrader starts calculating all indicators together bar by bar. So NinjaTrader internally just steps through each bar one at a time and calculates all your indicators, right? So the swing indicator that's being used inside of BloodHound is not allowed to backpaint when NinjaTrader is calculating the swing indicator together with BloodHound together. So they're both being calculated together on each bar one at a time. So that's a lot different than, say, if we're at, so we're at the end of the chart now, right? So all of this chart data, has all been calculated. And here, let me change to a 5-minute chart. There we go. All right, so that's the whole day. That's all the data on the chart right there. So all the data on the chart has been calculated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this solver, remove that solver. Okay, and I'm going to rebuild the solver again. So looking back at the chart, so you can see that the indicator, let's grab an arrow. Right, so the swing indicator has it has already backpainted, right? The swing indicator has been allowed to backpaint here. And since the indicator has been allowed to backpaint, BloodHound, when you first add this indicator to your BloodHound system, this indicator has already had the time to backpaint. So BloodHound's going to read this indicator's backpainting. So it's going to read those dots there. So if, let me get back here. Let's connect this up. So I'm going to set the swing indicator in here again. Set this up. So I just rebuilt the indicator exactly as it was again. So let's just take a look at this point right here. So we can see, right, the indicator has had its chance to back paint. And if we stretch this down, we can see that BloodHound is, BloodHound's being told, or BloodHound's being fed this indicator's back painted bars, right? So you can see we're getting a long output from BloodHound on these couple of bars here. So let me mark this as well. Let's see. Yeah. Right, so since this indicator is already on the chart and the indicator has already calculated its back painting, this back painted data is being fed to BloodHound, right? So this back painted data is fed to BloodHound when you add the indicator into BloodHound for the first time. Right. Now, if I refresh the chart, Ninja's going to calculate BloodHound and the swing indicator together at the same time. And so you're going to get different results now because the swing indicator won't have a chance to back paint yet, as the swing indicator and BloodHound are calculated together at the same time. So let's refresh the chart, and now you can see, right, this area here. Now the long output's missing, right, because NinjaTrader calculated the swing indicator and BloodHound together. So so there's a subtle difference in how things were calculated. So I guess the point is, if you got an indicator and you think that you should be getting results from BloodHound, but you're not, it's a very good chance that your indicator is back painting, right? So let me open up BloodHound again. So if I throw a new threshold solver on here, and let's change this over to the swing indicator again, like so. Right, so even this new solver that I just added, right? Built a new solver with the swing, and we can see on the chart once again, right? This long output is back, and that's because the indicator has already calculated itself, or I should say, yeah, when NinjaTrader internally, NinjaTrader is holding on to these plots as we see them on the chart, and that's what and so this is the data that NinjaTrader is feeding to BloodHound. So BloodHound's being tricked into thinking that this indicator really did print, right, this swing high plots in real time, but really it didn't. So, but this indicator, remember we updated. Oh yeah, actually, you know what? Even this solver went back to being tricked into reading the back painted data there. So now if I refresh the chart, now things are going to go back to the way they really would be if this data was calculated in real time. So now we can see this is missing. And let's take a look at this other solver here. Yep. So now both of these solvers, which both of these solvers are identical. They're both exactly set up the same way. But now both of these solvers have the swing indicator, plot data as if it was built in real time. Let's see. A SIF is asking, does it apply to all dynamic indicators? All right, so I guess a SIF is asking about back painting. No, a SIF. I would say probably, this is just a guesstimate. This is definitely a guesstimate, but maybe only 5% of indicators back paint out there. So back paint is not a common phenomenon, or is not a common trait that indicators have. As far as NinjaTrader indicators, the swing indicator, I think, is the only indicator that comes with NinjaTrader that back paints. It's the only one that I can think of off the top of my head. And and I'm sure you guys can see why it's back painting, right? Because if we actually, sorry, let me get this back here. It does look a lot prettier. So if I refresh the chart, obviously having that gap missing, it doesn't quite look as pretty. Filling in, back painting to fill in where the swing high came from, it looks prettier. So, so I guess one thing to kind of be aware of, if your indicator is looking at price action, price movement, then there is a good chance that that indicator could be back painting, right? Because obviously a swing high cannot be known until price reverses on you and pulls back, and that's how you can identify a swing high, right? So swing highs and swing lows, that type of price action, can only be known after price, reverses direction. So, all right. So, Stefan's got a couple of questions here on this back painting. So, Stefan's asking, how would back testing with Raven interact with those back painted indicators? So, so it's gonna react, the same way as how I showed you. So if you have Raven on here, and so if you have your strategy loaded and everything, if you refresh the chart, right, it's gonna force BloodHound and all your indicators to calculate together, bar by bar. So if you have Raven on the chart and you refresh your chart, then NinjaTrader is going to step through each bar on the chart and calculate the indicators together, so you'll get more accurate results, right? So if you, let's see, actually, you know what? Yeah, I think just the fact of adding a strategy to the chart forces the chart to update. So any action that forces your chart to update. So like for example, here, let me get this fixed again. So let's go back in here. So let's delete those solvers again. Let's remove them because they already have the these solvers already have the correct the corrected information. So let's add a new solver that's gonna look, or it's gonna see the back painted information. So we'll do this again. All right, so there we go. So we can see we've got some back painted information showing on there. Let's mark a couple of other spots. Like right there. Right, so I think right about there, that looks like it lines up with the swing high up top. So there's a couple of others, there's a lot more spots in here where there's back painted information, but I think we kind of get the gist of this. So, all right, so doing any kind of action where NinjaTrader has to update the chart, causes a refresh. So let's say if I go in here and you know, I want to add an indicator to my chart, right? As you guys know, adding an indicator to the chart forces the chart to refresh, and bingo. So we can see now the back painted information is now gone, is now missing. So the point that I'm getting to is, oh, let's turn the chart trader off. There we go. So when you load a strategy on your chart, so when you add Raven to your chart, you know, I'm just gonna throw it on there. So when you add Raven, right, what did it do? It's forced the chart to update. So so I think you should get correct backtest results when you add Raven onto the chart. But if you're in doubt, all you have to do is once Raven's on here, you know, and of course we do have to enable it. Once Raven's on here, all you have to do is reload your Ninja script, and that forces the chart to update, and then that will give you, you know, the accurate backtest results without the back painting. All right, and so Steph is also asking, what about walk forward data? Yeah, so yeah, so what I was showing you, let's see, let's remove Raven on here. So walk forward data is always going to have the correct data. So essentially, you know, turning off my data feed, refreshing my chart, and just stepping through on the keyboard, that essentially is the same thing as getting forward data. That's the same thing as that's mimicking, you know, walk forward data. So, because what happens, so if I slide my chart all the way back and I refresh the chart, NinjaTrader has not calculated the data that's forward on the chart here. Ninja has not calculated that data that we don't see yet. Ninja is only calculating the data as we step through each bar. So this basically is kind of simulated forward testing, or walk forward testing, right? So, and just remember, to do this, to kind of do this trick, you do have to be disconnected from your data feed. So if incoming live data will cause NinjaTrader to update the whole chart all the way forward. So that's why you have to disconnect your data feed. Let's see. Okay, so Robert is asking, is it possible to have BloodHound pick up the low of the day, meaning any time during the day's low, and take a long trade on the low on an up bar? Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, okay, and an up bar with the close higher than the open. So, all right, yeah. So Robert, BloodHound itself doesn't detect the low of the day, right? BloodHound is not that type of an indicator. All right, BloodHound's an indicator to build systems. So BloodHound doesn't have the doesn't know what the low or the high of the day is, right? So you'll have to use the Ninja's indicator, daily. I think it's daily low, daily high. So let me get that indicator on here. Current day, open, high, low. So, and all right, so we want the high and the low. So let me turn the open off, which we're not going to use that. Okay, so there is our daily high and daily low. So we can feed that indicator into BloodHound. And let's see, all right, let's find a reversal point. Here we go. All right, so we have right, new daily lows being made, and then we get a reversal bar there. So there we go. So I think that's the setup there that Robert's talking about. So that's where we want to try and generate a long signal there. So that's, yeah. All right, so let's open up BloodHound and figure out how to build this. All right, so we're going to get a reversal off of the daily high or low. So let's see. So what do we? So we can see here that whenever a new low is made, right, the low of the candle equals the daily low, right? So the low of the candle is always going to define what the daily low is. So we can do a comparison, for example, and find out when that the low price of the bar equals the indicator plot. And that way we can detect, when a new low is being made. So let's set that up. So let's detect when the low of the candle equals the indicator plot there. So we're going to grab a comparison solver. And let's see. So let's we'll set indicator A to price. And let's see. So all right. So when a new low is made, Robert wants a buy or a long signal here. So we're going to set price type long. We're going to set that to the low price, right? Because we're looking for a long signal here. So when the low equals the low of the indicator, we're looking for a long signal. And there we go. So when the high price of the bar equals the daily high, then we're potentially looking for a short signal. So we're going to take price type short and we're going to set that to the high price of the bar. All right, so now indicator B, that's going to be our daily high-low indicator there. So let's switch this over. And where is it? There we go, right there. Put that in there. And let's see. So we're going to use the low plot to generate a long signal. All right, so the current low is the red dashed plot line, and the current high is the green dashed line. So let's see. So we're going to use that plot, the current high plot, to generate a short sell signal. And one last step here. So we have to change our outputs here. So let's see, let's stretch this out a little bit. So you can see the outputs now, it's looking for A greater than B, or A greater than B. So we're not looking for the low to be less than the indicator, because it never will be. What we're looking for is when the price equals the indicator. So when A equals the indicator, that's what we're looking for. So let's turn these off. And let's set this to 1. And there we go. So we can see the long outputs. We're getting a long output from this solver whenever the bar, on every bar that's making a new low, right? Only on the bars that's making that new low. So we can see as we go forward, none of these bars are making a newer low, right? So we've got the first part of it done, right? Which is finding when a new low is being made, and the next part is looking for a reversal bar. So, all right, let's set the shorts up here first as well. So on the short output, we also want to set A equals B. So turn that on, set that to 1, and there we go. So when a new high is being made, that's been detected. All right. So now we need some filters, right? So these, so far, all of these long signals are being generated on down bars, but Robert wants a long signal when we get a bar in the opposite direction. So in other words, when we get an up bar. So for that, let's just use a bar direction solver. So there we go. Whenever the bars are up, we're going to get a long output like so. And then the next step is let's join these together with an AND node. Alright, so that's the new lows, and then we'll connect the bar direction in there and filter those out like so. Alright, I think that does it. Now, yeah, this candle here didn't have a body, so right, it was a doji or a shooting star, so no short signal there. Let's see, we got one there, and so if we got, well, that's it for the 5-minute data. And looks like Ninja's thinking about something. Alright, so Frank is asking, let's see, so when using multiple time frames, how should the default be set up? How should the default be set up? Let's see. The fastest one to trade from, both. Let's see. Okay, so I think Frank's question is about, what's kind of like, what's the best practices when using multiple time frames. Okay, so yeah, so so that when using multiple time frames, it's really it's determined by how NinjaTrader functions. So all right. So first, let me shut Ninja down here and get this restarted. All right, just a moment here while I restart my VMware. All right, so Frank, the short answer is you want BloodHound on the lowest time frame. Okay, that's kind of the lowest. Yeah, the simple answer is you want BloodHound on the lowest time frame. So, and the reason is that if you have BloodHound running on a higher time frame, say like a 1-hour chart, and you're trying to get data from a 1-minute chart, the way NinjaTrader functions is if BloodHound's on a 1-hour chart, then BloodHound's only gonna calculate once per hour. When that 1-hour bar closes, that's when BloodHound gets updated with new information, right? So if BloodHound is looking at a 1-minute chart, NinjaTrader is not going to update BloodHound every time that 1-minute chart gets updated. So let me open up another chart here. Let's see. Okay, so this is oil. So let's make I'll just set this to a a minute chart. There we go. Put that on a 1 minute chart. And let me get a few more days of data on here. Alright, so I'm going to get my chart set up here to kind of demonstrate this. Alright, so we have a 1 minute chart and a 5 minute chart. So we have BloodHound running on the 5 minute chart here. And let's see, let's put both of these in global simulation mode. Yeah, alright. And just a moment, let me get my bars. Let me get my bars so they're painting the same way. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this up. Is I'm going to detect. I'm going to detect when price is above or below this SMA line on the 1 minute chart, right? So let's say you want to know if price is above or below the SMA on the 1 minute chart. So I'm going to put a couple of markers on here so we know. Alright, so hopefully you guys can see the markers on both of the charts, right? So those are both the same markers there. Okay, so we got that set up, and so let's go into BloodHound, and alright, so there's a 1 minute chart. So in that 1 minute chart, let's do a simple comparison. There we go, there's a comparison there. And we're just going to see if price is above or below the SMA 14. Right? And this is on the 1 minute chart. So we'll set that to price. Okay, so we're just going to see if the closing price is above or below our SMA 14. And let's make a new logic board here. Alright, so this is just a multi-timeframe test. So let's add that solver I just built. So we'll go to existing nodes, and you see there's a 1 minute time frame now, right? There's a 1 minute chart. And there's that solver I just built. Let's put that on there and connect that up. Alright. Close BloodHound. Alright, so we need to refresh BloodHound to get that 1 minute data built. Okay. Now, so hopefully you guys can see my cursor on both of the charts here. So on the 5 minute chart, you see BloodHound didn't know that price was above the SMA 14 until this 5 minute bar closed. So let's see, let me grab an arrow here. So this 5 minute bar had to close, and if you look on the 1 minute chart, you see where my cursor's at? So my cursor is, let me mark it here. So this is the 1 minute bar. This is the 1 minute bar that the 5 minute chart was able to detect. So this 5 minute bar had to close before BloodHound knew that the 1 minute chart was above the SMA 14, even though on the 1 minute chart, price closed above our SMA several minutes earlier, right? Actually going, let's see, 1, 2, 3 minutes earlier, price had crossed. So if you look at, so let me stretch this way out. So you see where the arrow is on the 5 minute chart here? You can see the arrow right there. So you see that's in between these two 5 minute charts, these two 5 minute bars. That's in between the bars. So if BloodHound's running on the 5 minute chart, NinjaTrader is not going to tell BloodHound, anything about the minute chart until this 5 minute bar closes, right? So that's why you want BloodHound to be running on the lowest time frame. So that way BloodHound can get this 1 minute chart data, as it's working in real time there. So I hope that kind of gives you that's kind of the short answer there. All right, so Robert's using a third-party indicator, and he's trying to detect when price is crossing a plot that this indicator is generating. But he's not getting any results from the crossover solver. Let's see. All right. Yeah, Robert, I think next week I'm going to do another demonstration on how to test third-party indicators. So that was brought up to me again from my other staff guys that doing another session on testing third-party indicators would be helpful. So let's see. Robert, let me see if I can come up with an example. So I guess kind of what I'm going to try and point out to you, Robert, is that just because a indicator has a plot doesn't mean that there's any data in that plot. The first thing, here's kind of the first thing to check. So if you set up a solver in BloodHound to use your indicator and you're not getting any results from it, the first thing you want to check is the log tab. So quite often what will happen is, especially with third-party custom indicators, they're not coded correctly to work with another indicator. And when that's the case, you'll see an error message in here regarding that indicator. You'll see some kind of a failure or some kind of a crash with your indicator. So Robert, that's the first thing you want to do is look in your log tab and see if there's an orange error message in there. Let's see, I don't think I have any. Yeah, no, that's a session break. I intentionally don't keep indicators in this VMware that don't work with BloodHound because they're kind of pointless. So let's see. Okay. So if so if you got a crossover solver, and let's just check to see when price crosses the SMA 14. You know, so let's just say your indicator's put in here in place of the SMA 14. And, you know, so as soon as you build that solver, you know, if you're not getting any results, come in here, check your log tab, and see if your indicator is crashing. Most likely that's what's happening. That's probably the most common case. But there are some indicators out there that, let's see. I'm not sure I actually have any indicators that might serve as a good example. Yeah. Oh, well, better volume overlay. Yeah, let me test this better volume overlay. So what I was looking for is some indicators have a plot that's just called default. And sometimes, so some indicators don't actually have a plot, but NinjaTrader always applies a plot to an indicator, whether an indicator has a plot or not. So like some indicators will just draw lines on your chart. So if you have an indicator that just draws lines on the chart, you know, actually uses drawing tools, then NinjaTrader will still apply a plot to it and just call it default. And it's really this default plot is it's kind of a dummy plot, and there's no actual data in that default plot. So Robert, maybe that's the case here. And so let me just see if let's see if we get anything here. Yeah, all right. Let me erase everything here. And so let's put this on here. Yeah, so in looking at this better volume overlay, I don't see any plots. Let's see, we've got some colors. So I'm going to turn the sounds off. Let's see what happens here. Okay, yeah. So you see that indicator? What it's doing is it's just coloring the bars. So that indicator doesn't actually have a plot, right? It's not plotting anything on the chart, right? So actually that SMA was just from a previous question. Let's turn that down. Yeah, so this better volume indicator is not plotting anything, it's coloring the bars, right? So, but in BloodHound, BloodHound is being told that, hey, there's this plot called default, but there really isn't. This is just a dummy plot that NinjaTrader assigned to the indicator. It's just something that NinjaTrader does internally. Yeah, so there's a good chance, you know, that if the plot is called default, that this plot may just be a dummy plot and it contains nothing. So what you know, what Anna did is he actually used a data series, with some barcode. So I would guess that this barcode probably contains values of 1, 2, 3, or maybe negative 1, 2, 3, depending on the color. But this plot actually does nothing. So Robert, that's could be the case with your custom indicator as well. There, I'll just name that indicator there. And all right, so let me take a look at the board here and see what kind of comments I've got. Let's see. All right, yeah. So getting back to Robert's question, it very well could be Robert, that your indicator is actually drawing a line, right? It could be using this drawing tool here to draw a line on the chart, and which this is not a plot, this is a line. So you can double click on it, right, and you can see it's a line property. Here, actually, a good example is, let me put Dorshan's swing indicator back on the chart here. All right, so the SI swings, right? This is Dorshan's swing indicator, and you can see it's drawing lines, and you might initially think that this is a plot, but this isn't. This is actually a line, excuse me, a line object. So if I double click on it, you can see it comes up with the lines property instead of coming up with the indicator. So if you click on a real plot line like this SMA, if I double click on this, right, it opens up the indicator window because that was a plot, right? That was the actual. So this is a real plot, which will open up the indicator window. Whereas if an indicator is drawing a line, like this green line here, if I double click on it, then it brings up the line property. So that could be also what's happening here. So, so Robert, to handle that, you just have to have the indicator, use a plot instead of using a line. Instead of drawing a line on chart, you just need to have your indicator send a plot. So, or something else you could do is kind of going back to this ANA better volume indicator. All right, so this ANA better volume overlay indicator. This was written by Fat Tails, and so what he did is he used a data series. So you can put information in this data series. So BloodHound can read the information in this data series, and determine various things. So you could put a data series that contains the value of that line that's drawn on the chart. So I guess that's a support resistance line that's drawn on the chart, and you can put that price data, inside of a data series as well. That's another option. Ken has found this indicator that tracks the opening range, I should say the range of any time frame that you specify. So the indicator allows you to set a start time and an end time and track the high range and the low range within that time frame. So that's what Ken has, and let's see, let me calculate from intraday. Okay. So Ken, I'm just gonna use the pivot indicator here to kind of mimic to mimic your indicator here. So this would be kind of close approximation. And all right, I just need to find a spot on the chart here that I can work with. Yeah, okay, there we go. So here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for price to cross, all right, the PP line, and for price to cross S1 here as well. Okay, so there we go. That works. Alright, so we're going to do a crossover test, and I'm going to grab a crossover from the default time frame. Alright, so we're just going to be looking for price to cross that pivot indicator. So let's set this to price, and we'll set indicator B here to the pivot indicator. Alright, we need to set the settings up the same, so I need to use intraday data. Just so you guys know, let me repeat this again. So this indicator, the pivots indicator, this Ninja indicator, they have acknowledged that you cannot use daily bars with this indicator inside of a strategy. It just won't work correctly. So, right, so that same issue applies with BloodHound. So if you're using the pivots indicator inside of a strategy or inside of another indicator, you do have to set the prior day to calculate from intraday data. It's the only way this pivots indicator is going to work correctly there. So just, you know. Okay, so on to Ken's question here. So Ken, I think in looking at your screenshots, I think this is what you've got going here. So you've got one plot set to the long, and then you have a different plot set to the short. And so when we do that, so when you do this, you can only get long crosses from the PP, right? If the short is unchecked here, if it's unchecked, then you cannot get short crossovers from the PP line. So that's why there's a long checkbox and a short checkbox. So if I set the PP line to give me a long and short, then we get long and short crossovers. Let's scale this out, and just a moment here. That this better Anna. It's a little distracting, so let me remove it off of here. Okay, so there's a lot going on here, but right, hopefully you guys can see, right, whenever price crosses below the PP line, we're getting a short, and if price crosses above, we're getting a long output, right? And that's because I have the PP line set to long and short. But if I set S1 to generate short signals like this, now you can see we're only getting these long crosses. We're not getting these short crosses anymore, only long crosses. And if we go down here to the S1 line, we can see the S1 line is only generating short crossover signals. So I think, Ken, I think that's what you're doing with your indicator. And all right, yeah. So Ken's asking, you know, how do you use the crossover versus the comparison? Okay, yeah. So you can see a crossover only gives us a signal on the bar that the crossover occurs, right? So let's see, let's stretch this out here, right? So this is the bar where price did a crossover, right? So the second bar here, this, you know, price did not cross, or I should say the closing price did not cross the S1, right? Price had already crossed. So these bars are not crossovers. All right, a crossover only occurs on one bar. So, whereas a comparison solver, let's grab a comparison solver. What comparison solvers do is, if you look at the description, so look at the description for the outputs here. So what a comparison solver does is it checks to see if A is greater than B. We can check to see if A equals B, or if A is less than B, right? So this would be A. Whatever you set up here, this is A. and whatever you set up here, this is considered B. Right? So for A, I could set up A to be price. So I can set this to price, and now A represents price. B is representing the SMA 14. So I can see if price is greater or less, so I can check to see if price is greater than the SMA 14, and I'll get a long output. But let's see, let me set this up for the pivot indicators, since that's what we're looking at. Okay, and so let me set up the, I'll set the this comparison solver up the same way. So the PP line, we're going to get a long output. We're going to use that to generate a long, and we'll use S1 to generate a short here. So we can see that when price is below S1, that's when I'm getting a short output. And whenever price is above S1, there's no output. Right? And that's because the short output here, the short output, when A is less than B. So we have A less than B. So when price is less than the S1 plot, that's when we're getting the short output. And up here we have, for the long output, we have price is greater than the PP line. So if we scroll back here, we can see whenever price is greater than our PP line, we're getting a long output, right? And so it's on every bar. So, you know, the comparison is not doing a crossover, it's just telling you when something is greater than something else, right? Or the comparison solver can tell you when something is less than something else. So in this case, it's telling us when price is less than the S1 line. So, and you know, that's really all you can do on a chart. Is you can only, on a chart, you can only really compare if something is above or below something else. So on charting, there really is no left to right type of comparison. Yeah, when it comes to charting, it's basically you're just evaluating the y-axis. That's what all charting is. It's just evaluating the y-axis as time goes by. So, all right. So, Ken, I hope that answers your question for you. All right, guys. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. All right. Bye-bye.